Welcome everyone to Unscripted with Whitey and Joe. Obviously, I'm Whitey and Joe's here. How are you, Joe?
I'm amazing. Thanks, Pete.
As always, and we'd love to welcome our special guest today, Sebastian Watkins from the CEO, I should say, of Lendi Group. Bass, how are you?
I'm well, mate. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here today.
Well, Baz, we are excited because you have a phenomenal story about the growth of your business from the early days to where you are now. Can you share it with us? I want to know all about it.
Yeah, sure. How long have you got? Well, look, I'll try and give you the abridged version. So, we started our business 2013. We had no financial services experience whatsoever, but we just saw an opportunity in this space. And, we started with three of us. We went and did our certificate fours. We went and got mentors. We learned how to write loans. I think we knew exactly where we wanted to be. We knew the vision that we were trying to unlock. We didn't quite know how to get there at that point, but we started small and we started right at the coalface.
So that vision, do you think that's the most important thing?
I think the vision, you always have to have something you're working towards. And, when we started, we had, it was the April 2013 sales kickoff. We'd had our first handful of brokers in the room. And we were articulating that vision, and part of that vision was actually identifying who was, realizing that vision at the time. There was this brokerage down in Canberra, and it was called Tiffin & Co. I actually think they might still be around, but at the time they'd just taken out like the number one independent, and at that point that was our vision, that was our goal, that's what we were working towards, and that was our war cry. Our galvanizing thing that we were all working towards. And at that point, I think they had done about 300 million in settlements. And so I'm standing there in front of the team saying, here's our vision, here's how we're going to get there. And you believe me that if we're all in this bus together, if we all work hard, if we all pull in the same direction, one day we'll be doing $25 million a month in settlements and we'll beat Tiffin & Co. And everyone was like, you're crazy, Bass. And yeah, right. But we're here for you, I look at our business today, and we'll settle $25 million, on about an hour on any given working day. We've probably done half that in the time we've been on this podcast. So, that was only 13 years ago. So yeah, look, I think the vision does change, is my point. But you've always got to be working towards that next milestone. And I could talk for hours about those early days and how we found that balance. But we obviously don't have time. I think what I would say to you is it is a balance, right? You've got to be building the future while working, on the business today. And the way that I like to frame that sometimes, and this was actually told to us by a line tracker at one of our conferences, but I just loved it. Is, you got to be looking over the hill when you're tracking a line, but at the same time, you got to be following the tracks. So it is finding that balance. But it all starts with the vision. Like, where do you want to be? Where are you trying to go?
If you go way back in the day when things first started around that, 2013 sort of era, how many people did you have? And then what was it that as you progressed along the journey that changed, that you said, well, we've now evolved to this point, so we're now going to be this level? So I remember coming to your offices in Sydney. I'm trying to think of roughly when it would be. And I know there's about 250 employees, and I didn't realize that Lendi had that many employees at that time. Holy shit, look at all these people. So it obviously started at a point, grew to a point, and then took some really cool steps as it went forward.
Yeah, look, we didn't sit there and say we want to be doing billions of dollars a month in settlements. That wasn't really the financial goal we were working towards. We knew what the opportunity was in the space. We knew we wanted to be the number one. And how do we get to three of us in the garage to, almost 3,000 today? That's a very good question.
Must be a big garage, brother, at 3,000.
We have a few now. But, it is really just about compounding growth. We never accepted a down quarter, a down month, a down year. Every year we would shoot for the moon. We'd often hit the stars, but we would always be beating our previous PB. And, we were clearing what we wanted that year, that quarter. And we knew that if we continued to compound that growth, that we would get to that number one position at some point. And I just think you've just got to have that relentless, very thick skin, by the way, because there's been a ton of failure along the way. Again, just to share a story with you, and failure is funny because actually, if you persevere, the failures of 10 years ago when we started the business to today wouldn't even compare. was actually talking to Dave, my co-founder, about this earlier in the week, and we were laughing about, I remember 1 month we missed our settlement target by $7 million. And I remember us having crisis meetings about that. I remember just clearly we're in a taxi. The reports came through, but Santa was like, "This is terrible. This is fatal. This is the worst thing that's ever happened." We were in a state of panic, and we went into battle stations and we worked out what we're going to do. Looked at the pipeline, how we're going to fix this, how we're going to correct course. And again, not to sort of big note ourselves, but you look at a $7 million miss in a month today, and it's important. Every $1 million is important. Every customer is important. But I guess it's funny. You look back at how anxiety inducing that was 10 years ago, and today, with respect, it probably wouldn't register. But, it's all those lessons that you learn. It's that resilience that you teach yourself. It's that knowing that if you just keep pushing that, and you keep trying to get those beats and you keep trying to hit your PB, then, you look back on your business in 13 years from today, and the Tiffin & Co dream that we had is now an hour or two in our daily lives. So yeah, it's got to keep pushing, Pete.
And I agree. I mean, and you have shown the successes of that drive that you've had to get to where you are today. But I would imagine also that would bring a lot of stress or pressure, not just on the team, but on yourselves. You're trying to hit certain targets. You missed one by 7 mil today. You sort of go, "Yeah, I just did that in 10 minutes." But that must bring a lot of stress and pressure on yourself. How did you deal with that?
Oh God, that is a great question. And I wish I had the answers. I think probably you become numb to it after a while, which I don't know if that's healthy or not. But, I think the lesson that I've learned is there's a few things. First of all, I used to take my stress home with me, and I learned pretty quickly not to do that. Easier said than done sometimes. But, it's really important to have clear boundaries. And sure, you need to be vulnerable and talk to your wife or partner or significant other, whatever that may be. And you need to have the space to do that. But actually, for me, the understanding that stress will come and go, bad outcomes, bad situations, bad months, losses, misses, mistakes, they'll all come and go. And one day you'll look back on it and it will barely register. So I look at the things that happened to me today. I didn't know that back in the day, right? I used to think everything was fatal. I used to think everything, I'm going to be homeless, I'm going to be bankrupt, and there was so many times we came close, so many. And I guess over time I've learned that actually that thing that I thought was fatal wasn't. And so now when I'm in one of those moments, I try and remind myself that, hey, you felt like this before and you found a way through.
Yeah.
Leave your baggage at the door. You don't need to bring that stress home. Sure, as I said, don't be unhealthy about that. Don't come in with a fake smile every time, because that's not real or authentic. But nothing's fatal, I guess, is what I've worked out.
Yeah, it doesn't kill you; it makes you stronger.
Yeah, it does. I think again, I always used to think, we're doing this thing for the moonshot and the big money and the big payday, and one day we'll get it. And what I've actually found is the pursuit of doing it and building the business is actually what makes you happy. It's not necessarily like the thing that you think you want never actually comes. And I did hear this quote once, which I really love, which is, it's not the pursuit of happiness, it's finding happiness in the pursuit. And I think that's a great lesson for any business operator. Like, that big thing that you want, when you get it, you're not going to be happy with it anyway. So I've tried to find happiness in the pursuit, and really just love what I do every day.
So Baz, that relentless focus that you had on creating this vision, there's a lot of people listening today that are like, that's just so out of my league, I can't even get my head around it. Yeah. But as a microcosm, right, as a small example, with all the changes that are happening now, talk about AI and the tech and what that did for your business, because it's a really important, we're at a really important stage right now in broking.
Yeah.
Can you share with us a little bit about how you leverage that in your business?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think, if you look back at the last decade, and certainly since we started our business, and to the early days when we started our business, really technology was about digitizing old processes, making forms easier and faster, capturing information, allowing people to do things that you would otherwise do in an offline process, in a digital process. So what you would have written down in a form, you now do it on a website. But ultimately, it was a lot of faster horses, making workflows a bit cleaner, a bit quicker. I think what's coming next is completely different. It's not just another tool sitting on top of workflows. It's actually reimagining the whole process itself. Thinking about how we gather information, thinking about structures, scenarios, policies, workflows, customer engagement, how people want to be spoken to, when, at what time, what do they want to do themselves, what do they want us to do, how can we be efficient, how can we create tools that are efficient for them. What we have with the technology today is not just about doing things faster. It's not about that first wave of tech which is taking friction out. It's actually about intelligence, data, workflows, using AI to help our customers and our brokers not just do things quicker, but actually do things completely differently.
Sorry, what are some of these different things in AI? Because it's the big buzzword around the marketplace in the last 12 months, and I think over the last year or two, it seems to have this incremental push into the marketplace. How are you finding that work? Is it taking grunt work off people? Is it talking to customers? What is it?
Look, it's a little bit of everything. I think the big differentiator here is, and Dave, my business partner, explains this really well. If you think about like motion in a business, okay, everything is moving, everything is trying to move to the next goal in a business, whether it's a lead moving through the funnel, a settlement moving through to post-settlement, a commission being paid, a phone being answered. It's all motion, and all those motions are working towards achieving KPIs, goals, business outcomes, etc. And when you look at what I touched on before, what you're doing there is allowing humans to pull through that motion more quickly. So you don't have to write that form anymore. It's digital. You don't have to do that face-to-face ID anymore. It's digital, and you follow my drift. I guess the difference with AI is that you actually start to have technology that can think for itself. It can solve itself. And so you start to replace that human motion with agentic motion, where you're not having to do the thing more quickly. The thing is being done for you. It is thinking. It is rapidly understanding what's the next thing I should be doing and how should I do that. And it's able to actually take action against those tasks rather than being told to take action. And so, a practical example of that is advertising. You can now agentically spin up many landing pages. I mean, you've seen the quality of the images that can be produced these days in the videos. You can have an agent that publishes those. You can have an agent that is testing those and understanding which ones are performing better or worse. You could then have them upping bids and deciding to spend more money on certain ads and campaigns that are working well, downweighting those that aren't. That can all happen without anyone telling anyone to do anything. And that extends to a whole range of different workflows in our business. So, that's one example. But look, as we think about it more practically with our brokers, it is about doing the heavy work. And it is about creating, less administration, etc. But it's actually about the always on. I'll give you another sort of practical example. And this is probably less about AI, but this is more just what I mean about always on motion. We launched Rate Radar last week. Rate Radar is connected into our customers through open banking. When customers connect, they can set thresholds around alerts. So that might be an equity goal, might be a savings goal, like tell me when I can save at least $1,000 on my home loan. And what Rate Radar will do is it will scan said target every day, and it will let the broker or the customer know if that target can be hit. So that's a great example of there's this motion that's happening in the background. Old world, I meet with you, Pete, you tell me, hey, listen, I want to do this refinance. I want to save some money. And I say, Pete, you're on 5.9. You've done a great job negotiating. There's no savings to be had there. Now, old world is I'll touch base with you in 6 months, human motion. Old world is I'll put you into my diary. Old world is I'll add you to my email list. New world is, hey, Pete, I can't help you today. I'm going to connect you into my Aussie app. Now, what that will be doing in the background for me is it'll be scanning your rate every second of every minute of every day. And the minute or the second that said goal is hit, I'm going to know about it and we can take action. And so in that world, customer's happy, broker hasn't had to do anything, and you've got all of this agentic motion happening in the background that is notifying the customer and the broker at the exact time they should act. And you haven't expelled all that human energy on calls and database and missed calls and emails and blah, blah, blah. That's probably a very long-winded answer, but that's probably give you an idea, a flavor of how we start to think about some of this stuff.
Yes, that's certainly evolved.
I gotta ask the $1 million question. So Baz, do you think that this is going to develop to a stage that AI is going to replace brokers?
Oh, look, I think it will replace a lot of what brokers do, but I think broking is getting stronger, not weaker. Customers will always want choice. This gives us speed, but the confidence and the trust will come from the human. So technology, yeah, absolutely, is going to remove friction, but it won't remove trust. And, one of our values here as a business is keep home loans human. So, if we're living by our values, then I'd have to say, no, I don't think that is the case. Will agents be doing a lot more of our jobs for us? Will they be working 24/7 and helping us make us be great humans and great brokers? Like, absolutely. I haven't had any broker come up and tell me that they're annoyed about the amount of admin that an agent might take out of their day yet. So, I think we're okay at this point.
It's good to hear.
That human element of trust, I think that's all important. But if you can get that speed in processing and that style of communication with the customer in that manner, I think is absolutely brilliant.
Look, I think people will start to develop more of a trust in agentic experiences. I think it will become par for the course, as we've seen, with many technological advancements over time. But I think that with something as significant as this, you will still want a human in the middle. And that human might do 1% of the work, it might do 50% of the work, it might do 90% of the work. It will depend on what the customer wants. And what we're focused on doing is building a world where a customer can do as much or as little of the process they want in any way they want, agentically or humanly. And we're not there yet, of course, but that's our unrelenting mission.
I love it. Unrelenting. That's a common theme with you, Baz.
Yeah.
Unrelenting focus, unrelenting mission. Just that incredible, laser focus.
But see what you can achieve by having that laser focus. I mean, wow.
I know.
Well, I mean, look, I'm happy. I talk to you guys about all the good stories. You don't hear about all the failures. So it's not always rosy.
We know that's the journey. And talking about journeys, I guess, as we keep going forward, where do you see diversification beyond that traditional broking role is going to land? Is it still just the transactional thing? Is it more relationship thing, or is it different services that can be provided that are relevant and connected to the engagement with the client? Got an idea what that looks like?
Yeah, look, I do. I think, look, it's a great question. For us, really, the goal is not about adding more products. It's about solving more problems. And I know that sounds cliche and like a one-liner, but I say this to my team a lot. Like, this isn't about a cross-sell, okay? When someone wants to buy a home, there's many things that they have to do. And at the moment, you got to find the home. So, you got to go to REA or Domain or Aussie if you want to use our search experience, which I would.
You can plug away, mate. That's right.
Shameless plug. You got to find your home. So that's the first thing you have to do. Okay. If you're selling a home, you upgrade it, downgrade it. You got to find an agent to help you sell your home. You got to have a sell side conveyancer, a buy side conveyancer. You may need some sort of bridging finance. You are definitely going to need a home loan if you're, like most of us. If you're going to need a home loan, you're going to need building insurance. And then there's a few other things you should or could do, such as buyer's agents and the like. And yeah, you follow my drift. So these are all things that have to be done today. Now, we could look at this as a cross-sell and sort of say, now let me put you on to my conveyancer person. Now let me introduce you to this. And the customer's just going to be exhausted by and feel like they're being sold to. And that's what I mean by it's not to add more products, not to add more things that we're selling. Like, sure, that's actually what we're doing. But ultimately, what we're looking to do here is solve more problems. So, hey, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer, actually, now you don't need to go and find a conveyancer. You don't need to go and find someone to do your deposit bond. You don't need to find someone to find your real estate agent. You don't need, we'll obviously take care of the finance for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can do that in one, beautiful experience without ever having to leave the Aussie ecosystem. You can go from finding your property to getting your pre-approval to searching for that property with those pre-approval. You can chat with your broker. You can share properties with your broker. You can bring a buyer agent in. You can have the conveyancer in that same experience. We'll help you find a real estate agent. We'll connect you with them. We'll actually organize the appraisals for you. We'll do everything that you need. And what we've done is actually solved your problems, not sold you more products. Now, of course, the products are a byproduct of solving that problem, but I think it's an important differentiator in how you frame it. And so if you're framing it that way, you build your experiences that way, you build your customer value prop that way, and people feel that. Our customers should feel that. The risk is just bolting tons of products in there is that customers are just going to feel like they're being sold everything under the sun, which isn't a great experience.
If you leave the customer to their own devices, it probably gets a bit messy. Someone's got to give them some guidance somewhere along the way.
Yeah, sure.
You guys have obviously identified that. There's things you're talking about there, whether it's buyers agents and so on, that we've all known about in the past. I think this is probably one of the first times I've seen all the dots start to connect. And that must translate in my mind to really good customer experience and something that outside of your framework, I think, the general broker needs to stop and think very clearly about that. And so, well, how do I evolve some of that into what I can do? Now, obviously there's constraints. They don't have the size and capabilities of what the Lendi Group has, but within the means of an individual broker's capabilities, there's stuff they can do too to understand that these are important parts of the puzzle in giving that guidance on the completion of the sale. But the loan is one thing, but if it doesn't settle, all that work for nothing.
That's right. And look, there's some products that we make very little money off. So this isn't just about a revenue driver, but I firmly believe that if we deliver an experience that is memorable, positively memorable, and is possibly so jarringly different to the alternative, which is I'll do your mortgage, speak to so-and-so for your conveyancing, speak to so-and-so for, go to REA for your home, do this, do that, bouncing customers here, there, and everywhere. It can be exhausting, it can be stressful. It's not like the worst process in the world. This is a really poor analogy, but I'll use it anyway. I've used it before and I've been told it's terrible, but here we go. Here we are. I used to say, it's like if you went into a travel agent and you were trying to book your safari and you sat down and had the brochure, because what do we want? We want the safari in the same way we want the home. We know we need to do a few things to get the home. We know we need a few things to get to that safari, to get to that truck and go and see those animals. But ultimately what we want is the safari, the home. And so, the analogy I gave is like you go down the travel agent, they open up this brochure and they go, here's this beautiful safari at Serengeti Plains. You're sitting, and you're like, that's exactly what I want. I've been saving up for that. It's my life journey to go and see the rhinos and the elephants and this, that, and the other. And they go, great, I'm going to book you on that safari. And you go, fantastic. How am I getting there? No idea. Hey, you could call this number. I know that they can help you out with the flights. Oh God, I did have a mate who flicks me some safari deals and I flick him a few transfer deals. Give them a call. They can help you with your airport transfers. Hotels, I would try and use these people, give them a call, tell them that Bass sent you. You know what I mean? Like it's actually, and we kind of, look, I get it. Like it's how these referral networks work and many people build great businesses off it. And many of our brokers today have great referral partners. I'm not saying that having a referral partner is a bad thing. Please don't mince my words on that. But I'm just saying that if you actually understood what a customer was trying to, what we obviously understand, but a customer is trying to achieve that house. And if we can say, look, I've got it. I've got your back. I've got you covered. I've got everything. You will only need to deal with me. You only need to deal with our business and we will get you from cradle to grave, start to finish. And anything goes wrong, you call me. And it's all in our system. Like it's completely observable. You would go, oh, fantastic. I've just booked your safari. I've got your flights, got your hotel, I've got your transfers. I know this great restaurant, da, 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 da. You go, that's amazing. I'd come back to that experience. So anyway. I don't know, poor analogy, but that's how I see it.
No, it's all about the experience, right? If you can deliver a great experience, they're just going to tell that they will tell their friends and they'll come back again.
Yes, hold on.
Yeah. I've got to ask the question because there's so much change happening in the industry at the moment.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people kind of cliffhanger waiting to find out where is all of this going. What's your view? What's your perspective on what's next for the industry?
Look, I think that the industry is going to be defined by a mix of consolidation. There'll be capability uplift. And most importantly, I think there's going to be a much higher customer expectation of what they expect from their experience. I think they're going to expect more speed, definitely more transparency. Look, personalization exists today, but I think that will look differently. That You want that relationship, you want that connectivity, you want that personalization. But you also want that to come with speed, transparency, always on access, etc. And I think that we will come used to a world where we can ask a question and get an answer really quickly. Think back for the internet, have a question, go to the encyclopedia, ask around, work it out, get it. Internet, Google, search, find, get. Now, talk to your phone, get a very well considered, accurate answer that is deeply academic in seconds. People will start to transpose that expectation into all ranges of consumer experiences and most importantly, mortgages. And so if you can't get the answer you need in real time from an expert, and real time might be at 2:00 in the morning, by the way. I mean, here's a fun fact for you. We have more customers engaging with our tools and creating accounts between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. than we do between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So
I'll add to your fun fact. The latest home loan interview I did when I was, I think I was lending at the time. I wasn't actually broking. I was with a small bank at the time. Was 1:30 a.m. in the morning with two nurses that were on night shifts, and this is the only time they could actually sit. And this was before all the technology capabilities or searching capabilities that we have today. And this would have been way back in the day, too long ago. But 1:30 in the morning, and they said no one else even bothered to come and see us. Here's some dinner. I had dinner about 6 hours ago. But that's okay. I have a small meal and did the deal. It's all providing that service. But it's funny that time slot. There's a lot of people who are looking for stuff at that time.
Well, look, they are, and that's what customers will start to expect. Look, I think brokers are always going to play a critical and crucial role in the process. I just think the role is going to evolve. Like, obviously, the administrative parts of the job will be increasingly automated. That's like, you don't have to be Nostradamus to work that one out.
Yeah.
But I really think that the expectation around what customers want from their experience, not from their broker, but from their experience, will change. And I think that the gap between the leaders and the laggards will widen really, really rapidly. But I think our industry is here to stay. 81% of people want a broker. But what they want from that experience, I think, will look very different.
I love that, Baz. Yeah. So the whole concept of experience, so shifting from service to experience. And I remember somebody said, it's the first and the last thing that happens that actually creates the permanent memory of the experience.
Yeah.
So it's got all of those little pieces to it, but the first and the last is the most important. Yeah.
Well, it's so true. And it's a good point. And, just touching on my always on piece before, from that last experience to when a customer needs us again, there's like a massive arc of nothingness, right? I've just got you home. You just settled. It was a great experience. You're going to remember me. Probably not forever, by the way. But, if I don't do anything, I'm no value to you again until you maybe need a refinance or that next need. What's that, 4 years? Maybe you're buying your next home. What's that, 7 years? So if I did give you that great experience, and if that last experience was good, and that is the thing that you remember, how do I make sure that you remember that in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now? And that's the thing that we're spending a lot of our time pointing to as well, thinking about, is how do you actually stay relevant? Okay, I can send you an email. Auction clearance rate was this. Your suburb grew by 3%. Okay, like I'm sending that every month. At some point, I'm just going to get boring.
So it's no longer the fridge magnet.
No, I mean, it can't be, right? People are on their phones like 5 hours a day on average, more. You need to be living in that world. You need to have relevance, and you need to create meaningfulness and connectivity to your customers digitally in a way that is beneficial, hyper-contextual. And if you're not doing that, then they'll quickly forget who you are, unless you want to call them every 6 months and leave a voicemail.
This leads me to, I guess, something that troubles me greatly in this industry. It's always one of those questions I ponder and say, well, is mortgage broking about to slam into a brick wall, and it's going to be a dead duck in the future with banks that are aggressively promoting and marketing, come to our branch and come and talk to us. Not that there's any, I almost said it, not that there's anyone there, right? They're all screens and maybe one or two people, but they're sort of pushing their branch networks, their proprietary channels, but also technologies as well. And I say, well, does this mean that the future where we're heading is that mortgage broking is a dead duck, because it's going to be done by computers and by the banks on a direct basis and cut the broker out. And we see some of our majors, turning to cut the broker out and try and do things differently. But I think what you've touched on, and this is the wisdom and I guess the blessing for this industry, where you guys have traveled and what everybody can learn from, is it's about the experience. If you can deliver on the experience and the totality of that experience, that the principle of mortgage broking being a cookie cutter model done by technology all of a sudden starts to disappear. What's been cookie cutted is the process at the back end that nobody wants to do anyhow. Let technology drive that, while you look after the customer's experience on a much broader scale than just the transaction.
Yeah, I look completely. I mean, banks have been standing up digital or branchless offerings forever and a day. How long has UBank been around for? It's been around for.
We're meant to be polite on this podcast.
Well, hey, listen, UBanks are great. They're great. I think they're fantastic business. I think they're amazing. Unloan, great business. Like there's many great businesses, lending businesses out there that do offer exactly what we all seem to stay up at night and worry about. And they have been for decades, well, at least a decade, or at least the 13 years I've been in this industry.
Yeah.
And certainly there's many people that have thrown lots of money at the exact problem and been less successful than some of the ones that still exist today. Now, look, you'd be a fool to suggest that everything that the past will always predict the future. I get that. And human behavior changes, technology changes, things will change. But I think that the thing that can't change with those single lender propositions is simple. It's choice.
Yeah.
It's choice. And so, as a consumer, are you going to tell me that I could get a better deal elsewhere, or are you going to try and sell me the one thing you can sell me? And I think 81% of people today don't want that based on the stats. And that will probably change over time, but I don't, it's not going to zero. I think that there's many banks and lenders that have built their distribution around brokers, and will always be here to support the broker channel. And I think it's like, if I was running a bank, this is going to be controversial, maybe not, but I'd be doing the exact same thing they are. Like, they're all trying to run a business. They're trying to get more customers. And everything that they're doing is logical and makes sense. But I think that the proposition of choice, the deep, relationships that we have with our customers, and the experience that certainly we're building, will give us a standout proposition that, as I said before, should be so jarringly different to the norm that you would just never consider anything else.
Do you think, Baz, there's going to be a consolidation between what brokers do and what banks do and their lending in terms of like tech? Because we do have a lot of duplication in this industry, the same people doing the same things, and we're sort of waiting for open banking to really kick in, and we have a lot of sort of jarring things that are happening. Yeah. So what's your view on that? Do you think there's going to actually become like a cooperation and streamline efficiency on this?
I think there has to be. I think there's so much triple handling of work, documents, etc. Look, I mean, I think documents, I don't know how much longer they have to live. Like, it's crazy that we still use documents, by the way, but here we are. So, they will have a shelf life. But just using today's the work, that is a work example. Like, we get a document, the broker checks a document, our central admin team checks the document, goes through OCR, that checks the document, banks OCR, they check it. I'm saying. So
it's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. It's something that we've been trying to solve with bank partners for some time. And it is a little, like, it's very simple on one hand, yet complex on the other. But yeah, like, you wouldn't be able to see it with a straight face and say that process exists in years from now. Banks spend tons of money processing these deals, and, the agents will be able to do it with a high degree of accuracy and efficiency. So, there's probably a world where our agent's handing it over to the bank agent, and the bank agent is auto approving it, and that's happening in seconds.
How cool will that be?
Yeah, that's where we'll be, a version of that in the not too distant future. And that's a great thing for consumers. Takes more cost out of the process. So hopefully, more margin back to consumer, although who knows, maybe not. Look, at least you get certainty, and at least you get speed. At the very least, those are two great outcomes.
that creates that incredible experience. I think that's the key to the future as we go forward. Hey, Bass.
Yeah.
Mate, for joining us. Really, really enjoyed the conversation. I'd love to come back and have a chat to you in 6 to 12 months' time and see where we've come to and see what else is new, if you're up for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. Otherwise, mate, thank you so much for joining us. It's been wonderful. Really enjoyed having you here on Unscripted, and look forward to talking again, buddy. You take care.
Thanks for having me. Great chat.
Thanks, mate.
See you, Baz.
Bye.